Welcome to Tuesday night's training. Let's talk about taking the pain out of setting and maintaining our boundaries, which is something I know that can be a little bit painful for us. Boundary setting is one of those things we keep looking at going, yeah, I know I have to do that. I know I have to do a better job of this, but it's hard. Sometimes it is hard. Right? Setting boundaries is one of those things that we don't always like to do because somehow it involves potentially disappointing or irritating other people. However, tonight we're going to work through 3 keys to make it a little less painful for you, because boundaries and the power of boundaries is that it is one of the most amazing and powerful things we can do to create both a career and a life that we really love and that's meaningful to us and that's built on all the values and all the energy and all the goodness that we actually want. So tonight I'm going to review with you 3 keys to make this a little less painful. Now, the analogy that I often use when we're talking about boundaries is I want you to think about this as I'm talking through the 3 keys tonight about a house. So I have my house, and in my house, I get to choose the values, the energy, the ideas, the feelings, the things that I want going on in there. And then I have my yard. And so the house has my most intimate circle. And in my yard is the circle where things are a little bit more fluid. Definitely things that I like are going on in here, but I have a little more latitude. There's trust, for example, with the people who are coming in and out of my yard. But they're not the people who are inside my house, in my inner circle. So I have my house, I have my yard, and then I have my fence and my gate. My fence and my gate are my boundaries. This is where I choose. What's the energy? What's the ideas? What's the feeling? Who are the people who are coming in and out? Who am I allowing in my yard? Who am I allowing in my house? Does my gate have a lock and a latch? Does my fence need reinforcement or not? Right? These are the things our boundaries are made out of. Now, for me, boundaries became really important in 2 areas of my life. One was my personal life. I was a single parent with 3 growing kids, and I was managing a full-time career. So I needed to navigate pretty clearly and pretty early in my career what those boundaries were going to be for when I was working and when I was at home and what that would look like. And to be perfectly honest, for me, those were some of the easier boundaries to set. The more challenging boundaries I faced was in my career, and especially as I moved up in my career, was navigating that glass obstacle course where I had to set boundaries with my peers and even with my executives on how to treat me, on how to behave. And this all came to me, this all became very pivotal to me in my career at a stage where I was working with another director. We were peers in a company working on a project. And his team and my team were doing some things together, which was good. And then he and I were assigned to a project together to execute for the company. And for that project, we had agreed we would meet weekly and we would go over what he had done, what I had done, where we were with the project, how to move it ahead, and do a check-in also on how our teams were doing. Well, over several weeks, he just didn't show up to the meetings. Didn't show and didn't text, didn't call, didn't email to let me know that he wasn't going to make it. So for several Tuesdays in a row at 2:00, I'm sitting there waiting for this meeting to start, and he's just not there. Which for me triggers the whole, why was he being so disrespectful and rude? I'm a professional. I'm in this work environment, and I've set aside this time to work with him, and he's just not showing up. Why is this project not important to him? All of these things were building an awful lot of resentment and irritation for me towards this person. All because he just wouldn't make a meeting and wouldn't notify me when he couldn't make it. Now, this shows where this particular behavior was rubbing up against one of my values, right? My value of my time. My time is important. I already said I was a single mom juggling both home, a home life and 3 growing kids and a career. I was keenly aware of my time and how I spent my time so that I could be productive and efficient. And every time this guy missed a meeting, I felt time wasted. I wasted time preparing for this meeting. I wasted time waiting for this person. And now here I am and just full of irritation. And so now I'm not even being productive or getting things done because I'm just annoyed. So that's something to keep in mind, right? When our values are rubbed against, that's typically when a boundary is getting crossed. So in navigating this glass obstacle course, I had to figure out, what am I going to do with this person and how am I going to reset this so that I'm not filled with all this irritation and instead I can refocus my time and be productive. And I thought about the different options open to me. I could text him and say, hey, are you going to make this meeting? Can we switch it to a different day? Maybe there's a different time that's more convenient to you. I could figure out, do you need reminders? Should we send a reminder, an hour in advance or 2 hours in advance? Like, how do we make this work? And at the end of the day, the decision I came to was I sent him an email and it said, hey, it seems that this day and time doesn't really work for you. However, I'm very interested in getting this project done. So I'm going to keep moving forward on the path that we discussed. And as I need you, I'm going to reach out to ask you those specific questions. You do the same for me. And that was it. I didn't try putting another meeting on the calendar. I didn't try resetting expectations, or I didn't even bother going into why I was so irritated with his behavior, because his behavior, I did know, was not just me. There were plenty of other people he was blowing off meetings with and not telling them. And I don't know that it bothered them as much as it bothered me, but I knew it bothered me, and I didn't want that energy in my week. I didn't want my Tuesday interrupted by being irritated with a coworker for whom this project wasn't as important as it was for me. So I had to think through, do I need his help for the project? Yeah, I could use his help. Do I need him to be tightly involved every day with this project? No. Can I be successful without him or with minimal help from him? Yeah, I can. And that's what made me decide, forget it. I'm not having this meeting at all. That was it. Now, for you, let's talk about the 3 keys that will help you make setting boundaries like this a little less painful. And keep in mind, the boundary setting is important because it affects both your career and your personal life, because boundaries are based in values. So the first key to setting your values the first key to setting your boundaries and holding your boundaries in a way that's a little less painful is actually by getting more clear on what exactly your boundaries are. It's by getting clear on what your values are and honoring them. If we don't honor our values, if you are not honoring what it is that's actually important to you, then you're making it easy for everyone else to ignore that boundary also. We have to be the first ones to recognize and honor our own boundaries. So think about a simple example, but I'm sure that most of you can relate to this, right? Simple example is Tuesday nights, 6:30 is yoga night. So you're working and it's getting close to that time that you need to shut down and go to yoga, and you decide, you know what, I'm just going to work a little longer. I'm just going to work a little longer and I'll go next Tuesday. We've just dishonored the boundary we set that said we're shutting down the laptop at 6 so that we can make it to yoga at 6:30. Okay, but we've just done it once. So really, how bad is that if we've just done it one time? How bad can that be? Well, maybe not, but what we've just set ourselves up for is it's way easier next Tuesday to make the same decision, to say, I'll go next time. When we start violating our own boundaries, it becomes easier and easier to continue violating our own boundaries. And when we continue to violate our own boundaries, it then becomes easier and easier for other people to do the same. Because what happens, friends, family, whoever goes, oh, she's not going to yoga on Tuesday nights anymore, so we can book something then. That's no big deal. Or your coworkers like, oh, well, she always works late on Tuesday nights, so that's fine. We can We can work late on a Tuesday night. She'll be fine with that. We open the door for them not to honor our own boundaries because we're not doing it. So key number one is you actually have to honor your own boundaries first. Key number two, we want to take the personal out of our boundaries. And we want to focus not on the boundaries, but on the, or I'm sorry, not on the person, but on the behavior. So what I mean by this is we often associate behaviors with people, right? That person behaves badly. This person is disrespectful. This person is gossipy. This person can't stop talking, whatever it is. And we decide, do we want or we don't want that energy, those behaviors, those actions inside our house or in our yard? So let's just say we have gossipy Greta going on. And gossipy Greta gossips about everybody all the time. And that's not what I want in my house. I don't want a gossipy Greta. I want my house to be a safe place where everybody can share their ideas, share their thoughts, and feel safe, kind of confiding in me and saying, hey, this is what's going on with me, or here's what I'm thinking, or here's what I'm feeling. And we can explore that and we can poke and we can get in deep with that, but we're not judging it. And we're not going and sharing it with the rest of the world. So there's no place for gossip inside the world that I want, which means I don't want a gossipy Greta in my world. However, I'm not going to go to gossipy Greta and say, hey, Greta, you're a gossip. Forget it. You can't come in. You can't come in because we don't want you, Greta. I'm fine with Greta. I don't want the gossip. So my conversation with Greta is, Greta, gossip is not something I want in my environment. It's not something I want in my world. It's not something I condone. I think you have some fabulous qualities to contribute, but until the gossiping stops, you can't come in. That's my boundary. My boundary is around gossip, not around Greta. Because the minute Greta gives up gossip and she becomes gracious Greta or gentle Greta, she's welcome into my yard, if not into my house. So we want to focus on the behavior. Oftentimes it's the people that are closest to us. This is really hard to do with, but that's why it's so important to separate the person from the behavior, because we go, oh no, I can't do that. That's my sister-in-law. I can't do that. That's my mother. I can't tell my mother no. But actually you can, because you're not saying, no, mom, you're a bad person. You're saying, mom, this behavior, whatever it is that is encroaching on your boundaries, right? That's rubbing your values the wrong way. This behavior is what I don't like. I would love to have you here so that we can have a fabulous dinner together and we can talk about family and old times and all this other good stuff. But we can't go there. If you can honor that, come on into the house, mom. But if you can't honor that, that's not the energy I want for my family, for my kids, for my friends, for me. It's not what I want for me. So it can be very hard to have that conversation with the people closest to us, but it's much easier when we can have the conversation saying, it's about this behavior. It's not about you, the person. So one is honor your own boundaries and your own values, which means you've got to know what they are and be clear on those, and then honor them because you're modeling how others are going to honor them. And two is focus on the behavior, not the person. Now, key three is the one nobody likes. Key three is the one that's the hardest, and I get it, but it's the inevitable one. Key three is sit with the discomfort because it's going to be uncomfortable. When we are first setting boundaries and when we are first setting them and they're new, right? Maybe the way that we're defending them or presenting them is new to the people that we're doing this with. It can be uncomfortable. Somebody can say to us, well, I thought you were okay with this. You were okay with this before. And you come back with, I wasn't okay with it before. I just never said anything, but I'm saying it now. Or maybe I was okay with it before, but now I'm changing things. And this is something that's important to me. So allowing yourself and allowing the other person to sit with that discomfort is really important. because it's that moment of working through the discomfort that we get closer to where it is we actually want to be. We get closer to what it is we want in our house. We get closer to what it is we want in our yard. We get closer to making sure that we have locks on our gate and that our fences are all reinforced and doing their jobs. But we have to sit with the discomfort. And I know that so many times you hear self-care and personal growth gurus talk about, get comfortable with the uncomfortable and all of that. And the most personal growth happens when you're uncomfortable. And the truth is, they're right. When we are changing behaviors, even when it's for the better, it's uncomfortable. So that's your key 3, is just prepare yourself. It's going to be hard. But here's the cool thing about this one. Here's the cool thing about the boundaries. Once you've done it for the first dozen times, you've established this is my boundary. You're honoring your boundary. You're teaching others to honor your boundary. It's all about a certain behavior and a way of being. The first dozen times or so is that uncomfortable. You're getting used to you're doing this for yourself. You're doing this for the people inside your house. And you're building this life. You're building this career and this work environment and this home environment. That's fantastic. After the first dozen times, you don't actually have to do it so much, because at that point, everything about you is about that good juju you're building. People at work, when you've established that boundary with other people, they see that and they go, oh, that's how she is. We're gonna honor that here, because they see it now, whereas they didn't see it before. And it's the same thing at home. When you set new boundaries at home, even when it's with the people closest to you, once you've gotten through that training period, both for yourself and for others about being uncomfortable with it, it does become second nature and natural. And then you don't even question it. You're simply living your life the way you wanted to live it all along. So those are your 3 keys. It is honor your own values and honor your own boundaries first. Focus on the behavior and not the person. And prepare yourself for the discomfort. Get ready to just sit with and live through the discomfort, because it's there and it's going to be there. Now, quick bonus for you tonight is a script, because one of the hardest things is tuning into the whole, okay, fine, I get what you're saying. It all makes sense. I know this, like logically we know this, but how do you actually do it? How do you change the behavior? How do you stop the behavior? What do you say in that moment, right? That's uncomfortable. So I wanted to give you a quick script that works in multiple situations. When we coach together, we will go through different scenarios and different scripts that might work for those scenarios, right? What you say and how you say it at work with a peer, with a boss, might be different than how you show up at home or with certain people in your family. But I wanted to give you a script that is good for kind of multiple situations, because it's really basic and then you just customize it. So here's how it goes. It goes, Greta, I feel A when B happens because of C. And what I need is D. And yeah, I'm going to fill in the blanks to make that a little easier. But that's the basic script. What I feel A when B happens because of C, and what I need is D. So an example is, we'll use a different example than poor Greta because I picked on her enough tonight. Let's use let's use a couple. All right, we have a couple, and one of them has left for a few hours in the afternoon, comes back and discovers that her partner has found her journal, which was laying on the dining room table because she was working on it that morning, and read the journal. Okay, so you can come in and say, listen, I feel upset and violated when I heard that you read my journal, because my privacy is really important to me. What I need is a private and safe place where I can write out and process through what I'm thinking. And that's it. That's all you have to say in establishing your boundary with a person, because you've been very clear. It hurt me that you read my journal. It violated my privacy. And essentially, I'd like you to stop. I need a safe place in order to do this. You can modify that any way you want to for whatever situation you're in, for whatever has happened, but you don't need to over-explain. You don't need to justify why this is a boundary for you. You don't need to justify how hurtful it was or over-explain that. You don't need to justify what you need, but you do need to be clear on what it is, because that's how we set the boundary. It's with clarity of, I do not want you reading my journal. It violates my privacy. I need a safe place to be. That's it. So that's your kind of basic script. Why I've spent so much time tonight talking about boundaries, and why you're going to find I'm talking a lot this week. This is just boundary week in general, talking about boundaries. And as I work together with, is because actually when I work together with clients, this is one of the biggest themes that comes up. Boundaries are where we honor ourselves, which means our actual self-confidence and self-esteem is rooted in how well we hold our boundaries. Our boundaries are tied to our values. If we're not honoring ourselves and honoring our values, we are telling ourselves we're not worth it. Now, when you think about that in a career context, right? How do you show up powerfully as a leader on your team, or as a leader in the company, or as the CEO of your own business, if you're an entrepreneur, if you aren't honoring your own values and your own boundaries? You can't. How do you find work-life balance at work if you're always the one crossing your own boundary and saying, I was going to go home and have dinner with the kids tonight, but I've got to get this project done? The one fallacy we make, huge fallacy that we make, is thinking that work is responsible for work-life balance, that the office and the office demands are responsible for us not having work-life balance. And as unpopular as it is, the truth is 100%, this is in our camp. This is our choice. We choose to work the longer hours. We choose to sacrifice that soccer game, that dinner, that time at the gym, that night out with the girls. We choose that. Our company doesn't actually choose that for us. They don't make us. And there are conversations we can have to ensure that we are honoring our boundaries and managing our work-life balance. But that is 100% on us as women, no matter what your work environment is. And if it's really not working for you, then it's your choice to stay or change. That was a little bit of a tangent, sorry. But I was trying to emphasize why boundaries are so important. We need them for work. We need them for work-life balance. And honestly, we need them at home, because this is where it happens. This is where we teach people how to treat us. We don't honor it ourselves. It just doesn't happen. If we keep focusing on the people instead of the behaviors, we make it personal judgment against people instead of about what's the energy and the goodness and the good stuff we actually want in our lives. Anybody who carries that goodness can come on in, but if you don't, I'm going to keep you outside my fence. And it just takes practice. It just takes practice being uncomfortable. So that's your Tuesday training around boundaries. I'm so happy you joined me. For any of you who would like to dig a little bit deeper in boundaries, like I said, this is something in coaching that we spend a lot of time on, because as women, there are so many things we're juggling that we often struggle with trying to figure out how much of a boundary is that, because boundaries do move. We can make them move. We can do whatever we want with that. So if you would like to join me for just a 15-minute chat on boundaries, on either setting your boundaries or getting more clear on your values and your boundaries, it would just be 15 minutes. I want you to drop the word my house, because that's what we're talking about. So 2 words, my house, in the chat. And if you drop the words my house in the chat below, I will reach out to you over Messenger, most likely, but maybe email, but definitely over Messenger, to set up just 15 minutes, sales free. It's 15 minutes. We're just going to talk about where you are with your boundaries. And can we get you one step closer to setting a boundary or identifying a boundary that's important to you, to get you closer to building that life you love? Because the life you love, it's in your house. It's in your yard, it's inside that fence. And everything that happens here impacts your career, it impacts your personal life, and it impacts your inner life. It impacts you. So just drop the words my house in the comments and I will reach out to you. We'll schedule 15 minutes, quick, focused, on getting you to a place with your boundaries where it's a little less painful, because that's the goal. Let's take as much of the pain out of boundary setting as we can, because it is so critically important to how we live and love our lives. Thanks for joining me tonight, ladies, and I will see you next Tuesday.